Welcome everybody, my name is Paul. I'm a country realtor in the western part of Virginia near Waynesboro. And I talk a lot about the process of buying and selling property, especially in the state of Virginia. And I specialize in rural property, so that's kind of my focus here. I'm a big fan of homesteading and the country lifestyle. And I share a lot of books to help people understand the process of building and making their home having more value and getting some utility out of it. And what I want to do today is recommend a few more books, and thank you for all my new subscribers actually, and I really enjoy the process. I love hearing feedback. I know I'm not a big huge hit on the YouTube, a million visitors yet, but we're coming along here. Now today I want to start with one book here called A Forest Journey, The Role of Wood in Development of Civilization. Now I haven't read this whole book, but it caught my eye and I started browsing through it. And I started thinking about, wood. If you look at through history, man, there's so much history with wood. There's so many cultures around the world and various fantastic wood creations and all different kinds of wood and so on. And even in Virginia we have places that are still 200 years old and they're built with these big fat logs that they're still existing. So wood has been a very important part of our culture, and not just our culture in America, but around the world. When the settlers came here to Virginia, there were some very, very large trees here, and they had to cut them down. I read about how they did that, and they actually had to burn them down. They didn't have an axe, so what they'd do is they didn't have like a chainsaw. They had axes, of course, but what they would do is they'd wring off the bark and they would start it on fire, and they just let it slowly, they would let the tree die basically, and it'd take a while, but eventually it'd come down and they harvest the wood and start making timber and lumber out of it. So very fascinating process, and I thought this book, some people might really be interested in reading more about it, and you could look that up. The guy's name is John Perlin. So again, Forest Journey. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about landscaping, and one of the things that people have when they get a piece of property, your home and so on, one of the things that you can do the easiest to get some equity and is to improve the appearance by doing some landscaping. Now the property where I live on right now, it had a lot of really great features and has a lot of some other buildings here. But the previous owners, they took care of the buildings, but there was really no landscaping. It really wasn't any nice flowers or garden or anything like that. And that kind of leaves me with a blank slate. And I want to make the property look really nice over the years. So what I'm doing is I start some sunflowers and a little bit of gardening here and there. And here it is in fall. Right now it's September, Labor Day here in 2023. And I just have getting some ideas for the spring when time's going to come and I can start the process of making some new things going on here in this property. And I look through books like this. Now there's many types of books like this. You can get them at Lowe's and places. But I find that you can just get them at yard sales or Goodwill stores, just cheap as heck. Pay $1 or $2 for them and get some ideas, because I tell people, like, if you want your property to have some really beautiful equity in the future, for example, just the value of the property, do something unique. Do something really beautiful. That's maybe you have some feature in your property, maybe a little water feature, maybe a little fountain or something, or certain kinds of trees or flowers. And you can make your property especially unique and attractive. For example, fruit trees. If you have a property that has fruit trees, every spring it's just going to be glorious. And the bees come and the birds come, and it's just a beautiful thing to look at. I lived in a house like that for a while. We only had 2.5 acres, but we had about 12 apple trees and 2 pear trees, 1 pear tree and 2 peach trees, and a yellow cherry tree. And we lost a few of those trees over the years, but it's a beautiful thing to have, is to get yourself some good ideas by looking at books like this one here. Now I'm going to get into foundations here, but books about home landscaping and the different types of flowers and where they grow. I'll run through these real quickly here. You can get some ideas. Again, the newer books, the beautiful color and diagrams, and sometimes you even have exactly how to do things and measure and all that. Beautiful books. So get some of this stuff. And a lot of the stuff you can do yourself. You don't have to hire a really expensive landscaping company. But you can start making the front of your property near the driveway and so on, put a few flowers, maybe a little fruit tree and so on, and you can make your property look attractive and more welcoming to your guests in your home, the people who visit. Another one, this one's from Lowe's. Again, buy them used. You can go to Lowe's and buy this book for 25 bucks, but I got mine at Goodwill for $1. So I get these books around here, and I look through them, and sometimes I get some neat ideas. Here's a kind of fun book, English Country Gardens. Again, the English have a long history of different kinds of gardens, and there's Japanese gardens, and there's different kinds of traditions that people have used in different parts of the world to make their homes attractive. And, you know, just a little, when you have vines growing up the side of your house, it looks attractive, but boy, it can mess with the foundation or the wall and so on. So just be a little thoughtful about what's going to happen with the things that you plant, because I've seen people who plant so many things in their property and they're like small trees, but then 10 years go by and next thing you know their property is just so crowded with huge trees or bushes or whatever, and then they got to have it maintained. So think carefully about what you're going to do. Again, here's another book. This one's from Home Depot. Just run through these quickly. You know, I'm going to make a thing here where I give away some books, okay? If they're not part of my personal collection and someone watches a video and they say, hey, I really like that book, I might just send it to them and pay the postage here. Again, this has some more about the trees and different shrubs and covers. So I get a variety of books so I can browse through them. Each are a little bit different, and they have different ideas and so on. Again, landscape planning. Another one. This is an older one. Probably got it next to nothing, like $1 or a quarter or whatever. And again, use stones and various kinds of things that you have on your property. You might have some nice trees. You might be able to build a fence with some logs that are on your property. Look up old fencing from time immemorial. I looked up some fencing from around the world when I was selling a property with somebody who was going to do a homestead. And I started looking at the various kinds of fences that people have used over the years, just harvesting the wood on their own property. And they had to keep the cows in, the sheep, and so on. So there's some fascinating types of designs that you can find from looking around videos and examples and pictures from around the world. One little cute book here, just really in passing here. I had another video about raising animals, and this is a really good book for raising sheep. People might want to look. Housing and Equipment Handbook. Try to find this on Amazon or something. And this one has all kinds of detailed methods of construction to how to house the sheep and so on. So if you're going to get serious about animals, make sure you have some fencing and start looking into some books like this, because having domestic animals is still very, very common in many parts of the world. People depend on them, and you know, if you want to start homesteading and get into animals, you need a little information, some care and understanding about what the animals need, the ones that you're going to have there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about foundations here. Again, how you build your house, how the house is built. When you look at a house, for example, and you're thinking of buying it, check the kind of foundation that it has, because there's slabs, there's basements, there's basement walls that are old, just rock. There's ones that are made with just solid concrete, and there's ones with cinder blocks, and there's different ways that houses have been built on foundations, and especially sometimes, you know, they leak. If you have a basement, sometimes the walls will leak, and you have to figure out what to do. And if you're buying a house, maybe the house is beautiful, but the foundation is older, and you might have to think about like some things of maintenance over the years. So again, just understanding how things work and how things are constructed, so that when you buy a house or live in a house, when things go bad, you'll at least understand who you need to call and so on. And then when you choose a house, you might be able to choose a house that kind of like more fits your needs and the way it's built and so on. So again, for the do-it-yourself people there's a lot of really good information in a book like this that you can get in case you want to repair a little something. Sometimes people can do things on their own. They have a cinder block, so they can you know, build a new structure. For example, if you're in a property and you feel like you want to build like another building there, or maybe just a shed, you still need some kind of foundation. So you need to know a little bit about concrete and so on. So again, these are very popular books. I just suggest you get them at thrift stores or yard sales and save yourself a ton of money. But make sure you learn what's in them. A few more books here I'll just cover really quickly. Walls and Ceilings. You know, there's a lot of empty space in many homes, like for example, attics. And not all attics are amenable to making a full living space up there. Mine isn't, for example. It's not really even great for storage. But there's many ways to add space. And when you measure the space in a home from a realtor's point of view, you're looking at what's called a finished square space. They have to list that. Let's say it's 1,500 finished square feet. Well, you might have a basement that's technically not finished, and you can't really count as living space, but it may be completely dry and maybe quite large. So you can go down the basement in some of these homes and start making a totally different thing down there. You can make an apartment, or you make a entertainment room, and so on. So this particular book and ones like it have to do with how to do that and how the walls are constructed. You need to know a little bit how your particular home is constructed so you don't mess up a wall really badly. When you look at framed walls with sheetrock, that's pretty easy to adjust, but there's some certain kinds of some structures, for example, like the old plaster and lath. Boy, if you want to add on to that building, that type of building and wall, it gets a lot more complicated because those walls are built very differently. But again, pick up a book, something like this, and get some ideas for your particular house. Again, new living spaces, how to expand. Again, it's kind of related to the other book. This was from a series. I got them probably for $1 each, you know, and there's a lot of important information. But how you can expand a space, whether you can take advantage of an attic, or maybe add a little addition, or take advantage of a basement or something like that. So you get some really great ideas, and so you won't get any surprises when you open up your walls. Because if you open up your walls and you find like, whoa, I didn't know I got to see that. But you got to be careful when you open up a wall. There might be pipes or electrical stuff in there, and especially some of these old homes. I remember finding some dead mice in the wall. A couple of really small books here to finish off here. This one here, Natural Remedies, a lot of people know about. There's lots of natural herbs and plants that might be growing on your property, and you can look through a book like this and find some great ideas. I know on my property right now, I'm trying to find out all the different plants. I know I have echinacea, and I have raspberries, and I have a bunch of other different things, and some of them are medicinal and they've been used for thousands of years, literally. The Native Americans used them. I strongly suggest people find out what's growing on your property, because there's a lot of really helpful herbs and various kinds of plants and so on that were used for a very long time and still used, that you can even eat or get some benefit from medically. Now, one last book here. This is about muck. It's about compost and, you know, the plant stuff. I haven't read this book, but I did browse through it a little bit, and she talks a lot about compost, and you know, it's so important to get the soil right. I'm not a farmer, but I met a farmer recently in part of my business here, and he was saying that a lot of the soil in America is depleted. You know, you have to have fertilizer, unfortunately, because there's a lot of places in America where the soil has just gotten depleted, unfortunately. Crop after crop, year after year, generation after generation, and then they start adding all the additives and so on. So it's a really good idea to start composting, at least on a small scale, in your own property, because you can make some nutrients. You can compost and make nutrients for yourself that, you know, help your own garden. And I'm not an expert in that. I just refer people to books like that and other experts, because I know a lot of people are interested in gardening, and I am too. And I'm a beginner as far as the gardening. I've had little gardens in the past when I was younger, but you know, the tomatoes, the usual, the vegetable garden, and so on. But if you really want to get into larger crops and so on, you need to know a lot more about the nutrition in the soil, and to get some devices that test your soil and the pH and so on. So again, I really appreciate people listening to my videos and getting back to me and making little comments. I've made a number of new contacts here through these videos for people who are looking for property and maybe even moving here from another state. I love Virginia. Watch my other videos. I talk a little bit about the beauty of Virginia and the fact that Virginia has the most private farms of any state, because there's just a long tradition. It's a large body of water, ravines, we've got streams, we've got wineries here. We got timber here, and there's no shortage of water really in Virginia generally. We've had a dry, very dry August, but the wells are still pumping, and the rain that we did get, I have a little rain catchment system, and I get enough rain for my garden and things like that. But I urge people to look at some of my other videos, and I really appreciate the feedback. And I reached 10,000 views on my little site here. I try to make the videos a little interesting and so on and engaging. And I love to hear from people. So thanks again for listening, and appreciate like and share if you find this content interesting. So thanks again. Bye-bye.